Welcome. My name is Peter Strong. I'm a professional psychotherapist based in Colorado, and I offer online therapy via Skype. Skype therapy is an excellent opportunity if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, or if you're struggling with agoraphobia, or addiction, or any other emotional, psychological problem that might benefit from psychotherapy. So Skype therapy is simply any form of psychotherapy that's made available via Skype. We could also use FaceTime or Zoom or any other video platform, but the main point here is that we can see each other, and that is what's most important about Skype therapy. It allows you to see each other, and if you can see each other in real time, then your therapy sessions will be just as effective as being in the same room with a therapist. You don't need to be physically present to receive good quality psychotherapy, but you do need to see each other. That's a necessary condition for good communication. There's no alternative really to that quality of communication that's made available by seeing each other. So, during these Skype therapy sessions, I'll be working with you, teaching you mindfulness-based methods of working with anxiety and depression and other emotions. The particular focus of mindfulness therapy is to help you break free from the blind habitual reactivity that keeps you a prisoner of anxiety or depression. Anxiety and depression are primarily habits. It's better to see them that way than to label them as some sort of medical disorder. They are habits. They are composed of a set of conditioned reactions that you have acquired through your life, usually starting in childhood, of course, but they tend to get added to subconsciously as we go through life, and especially when we encounter emotional stress. So the primary point to understand here is that anxiety and depression are habitual, which means that they operate subconsciously out of your awareness. You are certainly aware of the suffering, the product of that reactive habit, but you don't necessarily see the preceding steps that lead to that suffering. So the key message here is that if you want to overcome the habits of anxiety or depression, you need to bring conscious awareness or mindfulness to illuminate those underlying blind subconscious habits. The moment you start making them conscious, they start to lose their power, they start to change, and usually very quickly they will start to heal the more that you make them conscious, to bring them into consciousness. So in mindfulness therapy, we don't just talk about our emotions. It's not trying to understand our emotions. That's not really the point. The point here is to bring awareness to your emotions. We talk about learning how to sit with your emotions with mindfulness. That means being totally present without any reactivity, any resistance or avoidance or any kind of reactivity at all. Being totally present with your anxiety or depression, or with reactive thoughts, if those are part of the habitual process that is causing your anxiety or depression. It's very important to cultivate this situation where you are consciously present instead of becoming identified with your emotions and thoughts and beliefs. That process of reactive identification simply feeds the emotional suffering. So it's by working with our emotions, learning how to see them as an observer, that we start to undo the habits of anxiety and depression. So the way we go about doing this is that we learn how to meditate mindfully on our anxiety or depression. Many people think that meditation is an escape from the mind, an escape from suffering, but that would be a totally wrong interpretation of meditation. The real purpose of meditation has to be to see clearly what's going on in the mind, because that's the only way you will ever achieve freedom from those habitual processes that cause your emotional suffering. So we learn to sit with our emotions. We learn how to stay present with them without becoming reactive. If we react, no problem. But our intention is to see that reaction. That is the point. So mindfulness meditation is best regarded as a form of training. You're training with the mind, training with your emotions, with your thoughts. So training to be free from their influence so you can see them but not become identified with them. That's the primary objective in mindfulness therapy, and I will teach you how to do this in our sessions together. We will practice doing meditation during the sessions, and we'll examine all the different parts of the process of establishing this freedom. Now, when you stop reacting to your emotions with avoidance or aversion or identification, then you create the right conditions for healing. And that's another important theme to understand here, which I will teach you during the Skype therapy sessions, is that emotional suffering is already trying to heal. So your anxiety is trying to heal itself. Your depression is trying to heal. Your grief is trying to heal. And it will heal if you stop reacting, if you stop feeding the emotion underneath. Reactivity inhibits healing. Mindfulness promotes healing. So that's a very important principle. Emotions are, if you like, destined to heal. That's built into the very emotional structure itself. So an analogy here that might be useful is to think about your anxiety or depression or anger or grief or sadness or emotional trauma. Just to look at these emotions as being like a fire. All right? They're a very powerful source of energy that influences our well-being and influences our perception and our actions. So think of it like a fire. But here's the thing. All fires anywhere in the world have one direction, and that is to burn themselves out. They are, if you like, seeking their own extinction. That's built in to the structure of fire, and there are no exceptions. If you like, this has a parallel with a basic concept in nature, that nature does not like things that are in an unstable state energetically, and it will always move to a more stable state when allowed to do so. So your emotions are like fire, but that fire is already on a path of burning itself out. So that's a very useful concept to bring into this too. It's another concept that's very similar is the process by which a wound heals. So a physical wound, a cut, or even a broken bone, the moment you create that physical wound, it starts on a process of healing, of returning to a state of balance, well-being, and general wellness. So healing is another example that operates in the body continually throughout the day. It's responding to stress by healing when it's allowed to do so, when we're not doing unskillful things that prevent that natural process of healing. Our emotions are just the same. There's no difference really. They are like a wound. They are already on a path of healing. They are on a path of self-extinction, of returning to balance and well-being. But our reactivity gets in the way. So in the case of the fire analogy, that reactivity of avoidance, aversion, and identification is the equivalent of throwing wood onto the fire. It's a fuel, and it keeps the fire from extinguishing itself. In the case of a wound, if we don't take care of the wound, then it inhibits its natural process of healing, and it takes longer to heal. So this brings in another quality of mindfulness that's very closely related to the consciousness component, and that is the response of compassion. So you know how important it is to take care of a physical wound, and that will speed up its healing. Well, in the same way, we need to take care of our emotional wounds, our anxiety, our depression, our feeling of hurt, of our irritation, our anger, our grief, our sadness, our trauma, whatever the emotion is. What really facilitates healing is when we can respond with compassion. And in that relationship of consciousness and compassion, inner wisdom arises quite naturally, which aids that process of healing. You start to see clearly what can help the emotion heal. So it's really opening to these natural healing forces in our mind. That's really the heart of mindfulness meditation. You're opening to the natural forces, the natural wisdom that leads to the resolution of suffering and the promotion of well-being and happiness. So there's lots to learn, and I'll be happy to teach you during these Skype therapy sessions if you are really interested in working with your anxiety or depression using mindfulness. So please contact me if you'd like to schedule a Skype therapy session, and we can get started. This process of mindfulness therapy is very effective, and people respond extremely well, and usually you will see incredible improvements in just the first few weeks once you start putting into practice the mindfulness methods that I will teach you during these Skype therapy sessions. So please contact me, and let's get started. Thank you.